Good evening, Garden City. I'd like to call to order our regular scheduled council meeting for Monday, October 7th, 2019 at 7 p.m. Our first order of business is our opening ceremony, which consists of the national anthem, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for those service members that have given their lives while defending our country. Would everybody please stand? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Miller, can you take the roll, please?
Mayor Walker.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jacobs.
Here.
Councilmember Lynch.
Here.
Councilmember Squires.
Here.
Councilmember Earl.
Here.
Councilmember McCarge.
Show Councilmember McCarge absent and excused, please.
Councilmember Kerwin.
Here.
Okay, before we get started, I want to publicly apologize to Mr. Murray on the way I responded to you at the last meeting. I should have did a better job explaining, and I should have handled it in a better manner. And for that, I apologize. As far as your suggestion for the font size, if you look at the back of today's agenda, we did increase the font size for easier reading. And as far as the time limit, our time limit is 3 minutes. We try to stick to that policy. However, if there's a hot topic or a need to adjust the timing, the time to ask for that is during public comments, and council can vote to suspend the rules for that night to add more time. And again, I apologize. Okay, next we have the approval of the agenda.
Mayor,
Councilmember Lynch.
I move for the approval of the agenda for Monday, October 7th, 2019 as presented.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Squires. Any comments from the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0. We have no recognition tonight. Comments from state and county officials. I see we have Mr. Peterson here from State Representative Joelle Jones' office. How you doing, sir?
Fine. How are you, sir?
Good.
Good evening, council members, Mayor Walker, City Manager Doc Doherty. Don't have a lot. I'm sure you've read about the debate over the budget. The governor vetoed about a little less than $1 billion. And so the budget has still passed. And what will happen now is that the rest of it will be distributed through supplemental budgets. Hopefully that'll improve our chances for getting something for your parks. We're going to work real hard to try to get some funding for a project that you submitted to us. There are a couple of significant pieces of legislation passed last week. One in particular affects law enforcement officers. There's been an ongoing problem with prisoners who've been being transferred for trial or other, court-related matters, attacking police officers, and in fact, citizens in general trying to take firearms away from police officers. So what we've done is passed legislation that actually increases the penalties for trying to unarm an officer or take his weapon away. In the past, the legislation, basically, the penalties for attacking an officer, whether you pushed him down the stairs or assaulted him physically, were the same. So there's been a significant increase in the penalties that are applied as a person attacks the officer. Other than that, you stand by. Hopefully we can get some further resolution on the budget. That's all I had.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have anything for Mr. Peters? Thank you, sir. Wayne County Commissioner Glenn Anderson, how you doing, sir?
Good evening. Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to bring you an update. I have a number of items. I'll try to go through them quickly and not add to the length of the meeting. But I did want to, first off, is to remind everyone that we do have the October coffee hour on October 14th. It'll be at the Maplewood Center from 10:30 to 11:30 for anyone that would like to attend. On Thursday, September 19th, the Commission approved a $1.63 billion county operating budget for the 2019-2020 budget year, fiscal year. And the new budget represents a decrease from the previous year's $1.66 billion budget, amended budget, which expired or ended on September 30th. This budget included additional funding to provide for an additional Veterans Outreach Officer to help make Wayne County Veterans Out County, Western Wayne and downriver in particular, have someone they can speak to rather than having to make a trip downtown, pay for parking, and it's quite a chore to make it downtown for our veterans. We're trying to make it easier for them to have access to services that the county provides. So we put that in the budget this year. Former Commissioner for Garden City, Diane Webb, and myself, and we were fighting hard for that to try to get that for our veterans, and it'll be in the budget, or it is in the budget. It'll probably be another week or two before everything will be established as to where those meetings, the office will be. Right now, I know there's been offers for some free space, and it looks like we're getting close to getting that settled. The Commission also approved a contract at our last full board meeting last Thursday for 2 new cameras in the Commission chamber and 1 new camera in the video cameras in the Commission committee room, where all the committee meetings take place. And this new contract will allow the Commission to better record Commission meetings, have a better quality video, which will be available for the public to view. And many of you will recall that I mentioned early this year, we were pushing back in January for this to happen. Diane Webb and myself, and there were 2 others that were very strong in our opinion that the public has a right to know what happens at the county commission meetings. With a budget the size that Wayne County has, that we should all be pushing for transparency and greater understanding of what happens with their dollars at Wayne County. The county will be also implementing a new policy for its road construction contracts beginning next year. The county will soon require companies to provide warranties on any construction project exceeding $2 million. And I think I've mentioned it at a previous council meeting here that the state pretty much forced all the county's hands. I think it's a good thing. I think it's long overdue that we expect and receive warranties on the road work so we can extend the life of those projects and make sure that they are what they should be, spending the taxpayers' dollars. The Commission also signed off on a deal last Thursday to sell the land. I don't know how many of you remember hearing of the Pinnacle Race Course out in Van Buren, out in that area. Actually, it touches several townships, a couple of townships, and that race course has been sold for $4.8 million. And as presented, the deal would potentially include up to $40 million in development. that depending on how much is ultimately developable, there's a lot of wetlands there when they decide on how much they can develop, and it'll be up to about $40 million of investment. And it could include mixed-use developments such as light manufacturing or logistics warehousing. It's also the partner or the company that's buying it is Texas-based Hillwood Enterprises, and it is the son of a very famous former presidential candidate, Ross Perot's son, Ross Perot Jr., is involved with the purchasing of that property. They've got a really good track record of following through with their developments, so I'm hopeful it'll work out, and the county will continue to rid itself of properties that it's no longer using that can bring income into the county and do some projects for the citizens of the county. In September, the commission approved a contract with Bronner's in Frankenmuth to provide some new and updated and additional lighting displays for the Wayne County Light Fest. The event, as everyone knows, is coming up on us real soon, about a month or so away. It'll start on Thursday, November 21st, through Tuesday, December 31st, and it's, of course, closed on Christmas Day, with the entrance being at the same place on at Merriman Hollow Park in Westland off of Merriman Road, and the fee will stay the same, $5 donation per vehicle. I have no idea what the new display is, so I guess they'll drag me into getting in there too, because I want to, my grandkids will want to see what's been added, and it's always a huge success as far as the turnout, people coming to see that. It's becoming a tradition, I think, for a lot of people to take their grandkids and the family through. I was pleased to attend recently the Garden City Senior Health and Wellness Expo. I wanted to congratulate those folks over there that put that all together. It's on Friday, that was the 27th of September. I know there were a ton of vendors there, and I congratulate the Senior Center for putting on this informational event. And as all of you know, the Garden City DDA, I thought I'd put a plug in for the chili cook-off. I'll be there as an honorary judge. I think, Mayor, I think you're usually there as a judge, and some others, and it's always a great time in Garden City. My wife and I are always talking about Garden City for the size that it is, how the community comes together for events all year round. Absolutely. And there's more happening here than probably any other city that I represent on a continuous basis. And it says something about the spirit of the people of Garden City. Thank you all.
Can I ask you a few questions?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
On this $1.36 billion, is there any money off the top of your head for any of the county roads that travel through Garden City?
There's, I know the one thing that there was, that I mentioned before, the part of it comes into Garden City on Merriman Road. I think trying to remember the Helen Street. Is it Helen Street that's the first one south of Warren Road? Rush. Well, I thought it was the one, what's the one that's just south of the Party Store? Is that Rush that runs
That's
alongside?
Rush. That's
okay.
Rush.
So it does go down to that point, and the bridge, of course, the bridge is all in Westland. But it's used by probably every Garden City resident at some time or another uses that. Off the top of my head, I can't think of
What about
other
anything
ones.
for parks, park improvements?
Well, there will be the same thing again, that flows through my office, like Helen Park. I guess that's where I had Helen in my mind. That is one thing that's being improved. I know you guys had approved that when Parks and Rec brought it to you. And there'll be probably about the same amount, maybe slightly more in the budget that we get out to allocate to our communities. So there'll be at least that amount, if slightly more, because property values are starting to see the increases finally now, and that's what it's based on. But I can double check for you and find out what other projects there are. I know there was very few, with the exception of Middle Belt Road. That was from Michigan Avenue, though, up to Avondale, I believe, in Inkster. I think it doesn't, that part doesn't hit Garden City. But I think it might even go all the way into, it's in 2 phases, as I recall, and one is up to Avondale and the others, I think, up to Cherry Hill, and it's over a 2-year period. But I can double check and get back with you with an answer.
Thank you, sir. Anybody
You're
got anything from Mr.?
Real quick, I want to thank you and Commissioner Webb for fighting for the veterans and for the transparency. I know that was a big deal.
It was. I mean, our meetings, as I mentioned once before, our meetings have never been televised. And they won't be live televised, but they'll be available and they'll be uploaded to YouTube so anyone can watch them at their convenience. If they want to come down, they don't have to come down to see what's happening. I'd like to see the day that it becomes a lot easier for people to also to be, and I submitted that recommendation when we were looking at the rules and considering the rules, to let citizen comments, just as you do, come up at the beginning of the meeting. And rather than having people sit there and wait until the end of the meeting, and also have to pay, they have to come down for parking and pay for parking. I think we should make it as convenient for people as possible. And transparency has always been a big priority of
You have
mine.
some long meetings.
Yeah. Oh, I don't doubt it.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to community events. I'm going to call up Fire Chief Kathy Harmon.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor, Doc. I wanted to remind you this is Fire Prevention Week, and at the end of the week is our open house at the Garden City Fire Department. We're co-sponsored by the Garden City Lions Club. We'll have a tour of the fire truck, the stations, our equipment. We'll also do a vehicle extrication. We coordinate this again with the DDA, the Chili Cook-Off, the Car and Motorcycle Show, and the Police Department. We'll have the hay rides again this year, going back and forth to both events. We'll have donuts and cider, and it's from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. for us. We have a special needs preview just for special needs at 10 a.m. As you know, this year's theme is Not All Heroes Wear a Cape, Plan and Practice Your Escape. So we'll have a lot of stuff from the NFPA for children and parents to practice. This is also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and everything goes with pink. Thank you, Gordon Chevrolet and Santu Funeral Home. They donated the money, so all the firefighters have a nice pink badge in honor of those with who have had or passed from breast cancer. And the union stepped up in order to raise money for their charity fund. They have designed a new T-shirt, so they'll be selling these at the Chili Cook-Off too, and the proceeds will go just into the charity fund.
Very
Okay?
good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Police Chief, I'm going to put you on the spot. You got an open house as well, correct? Sure do. You want to come up and say a few words about the police open house?
Yeah, and piggybacking off the fire department statements, yeah, we're 11 to 3, police department open house, right at the same time as the chili cook-off. You can get a hay ride back and forth from the chili cook-off. Come see how your police department operates. Come sit in the police car, turn the lights on, have some fun. It's been a great event for the past bunch of years, and we've heard nothing but great reviews, so we're going to keep doing it. And I encourage everybody to come and be a good part of the community that day. It's a great day in Garden City.
Thank you, sir. We have no petitions or communications tonight, no public hearing. Move on to the consent agenda, but up first, Mr. Doherty wants to say a few words about this.
Yes, Mayor, there's a Scribner's error here, just on page 2 of the minutes, under section 154.022, section C3, the accessory buildings. It should be 1,200 square feet rather than 1,500 square feet. That was what was passed through the Planning Commission. There wasn't much discussion here at the table about that item as far as the size, but I was informed afterward that there was, between paper going back and forth, it should be 1,200. I've already talked with the clerk's office as far as posting it. We just want to pass it through here to let you know to make that change, if that's okay with the council, to be correct in our numbers there.
1,500 down to 1,200 square feet.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, motion's in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Lynch.
I move for the approval of the consent agenda, item 10A, 1 through 4, with the correction on the council meeting minutes of 9/23/19.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Kerwin. Any comments from the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0. Move on to item B, our action items. Public hearing and necessity request for 2019-20 sidewalk replacement program.
Mayor,
Councilmember Squires.
I move to approve the request to call for a public hearing of necessity on October 21st, 2019 for the 2019-2020 sidewalk replacement program.
Support from Councilmember Jacobs. Any comments from the table? From the general public? Yes, sir.
John Murray, Lather Street. I understand there's sort of confusion about due notice on this stuff, and I was wondering, to put it in the Observer is probably expensive, but could we not utilize cable with Mr. York and maybe put something on that?
I'm going to refer to Mr. Miller. How many places do we put it, Mr. Miller? I know it's in the Observer, our website.
Yes.
It's on the bulletin board.
Yes.
Anywhere else?
And then we post at the library and the community center.
Community center and the library.
Okay, but the problem for myself is I have to come here to look for it, and I was looking for convenience. If you put it there, it might entice some other people to come and participate in that. And I think that key component is we need to get more citizens involved, and I think there's, I'm not going to use the word lack of information, but I think we could do a better job of promoting what's going on.
Okay. I'll have you get with Mr. Miller and see if there's anything else we can do, okay? Ms. Farren?
Good evening. I would just like to request that you use the Nixle system for the public hearing information. It is used for the chili cook-off, it is used for the lucky squirrel, it is used for a lot of non-emergency type events. And I think it would be a really good tool to use for public hearings. Thank you.
Okay. I did talk to Mr. York about that very thing, because you had asked me a few weeks ago. We don't promote the events on there. What you're seeing on there is look out for traffic, parking hazards, for Lucky Squirrel, for the chili cook-off. That's why it's on Nixle. Nixle is supposed to be informational for traffic hazards, accidents, stuff like that. So when you see it, they're just warning you about all the additional traffic.
That's okay, I
parking.
don't mind, but I think
Right.
the public hearings could still be put out over that.
Right, okay,
If you wanted to, you could, I think.
okay. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0. Item 2, 2020 Road Improvement Bond Program Proposal and Design and Bidding. Mr. Doherty.
Thank you, Mayor. This is preliminary at this point of what roads we're looking to do in this next year. We're asking permission just to kind of bid these out. We'll see what happens in the final numbers as they come through over the fall, of whether we're adding roads or possibly subtracting roads going into this year's budget. But in the next couple of meetings, we'll have more of a presentation on the overall road list for this year and going into next year. So this right now is a list of roads for Hennessy to put out officially to bid and receive responses, and then see where we are overall.
And I think for the residents, I think in November, probably the second meeting in November, we're going to put out all the roads we did this year.
This year,
And then
next
what we
year's.
plan on doing next
Correct.
year. Okay. Motion's in order?
Mayor?
Councilmember Lynch.
I move to approve the proposal for design and bidding services for the 2020 Road Improvement Bond Program with Hennessy Engineers of Southgate, Michigan, in an amount not to exceed $285,295.
Support from Councilmember Kerwin. Any comments from the table?
Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Well, I'm all for this, and I really like our roads getting done. I've been vocal about lack of timeliness, and I know we have talked about putting on some stricter dates as far as how long they have to get done, not leaving an area for 3 months to go do something else, and all of that. So I really want to make sure that Mr. Kern and Hennessy get on that and make sure when we start a project, we're getting it done in a timely manner, or at least getting to a good spot where we can come back and then do everything at one time. But right now, I'm really disappointed in pretty much all the projects as far as how they're getting done. So that's all.
You're talking about the asphalt, Vice Mayor, and it's correct. The councils across the board have inquired about that. There's a couple things that we're changing, as you mentioned, the timeline of a quicker date, finish date, as well as what we did this past year, because we've had so many roads going on the asphalt. The concrete company has generally been Johnny on the spot. Hard Rock, not necessarily Maplewood, different company.
Some of them.
So what we tried to do is go with several different companies, and then in the end, to see what happens this year, which ones we may want to just automatically bid with, if they keep their pricing, other ones that we need to rebid. Part of it was that they started to work on some more asphalt roads without fully completing the first set of asphalt roads. Put toppings on before we were ready to go with the full landscaping. So there was a little bit back and forth that should have been taken care of, but our timeline wasn't as tight. Also laying down sod and preparing for the finished product may not be best to do in August or late July. So that became a timing issue also as we looked at to say maybe we shouldn't start those roads so early if we're not going to be able to finish them until into September, October because of the weather. So we learned a little bit in this process, but definitely there's some companies that we're looking to work with in the future, and there's some companies maybe not so much at this point. Correct.
Any other comments from the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0. Item 3, Ice Arena Preventative Maintenance Agreement. Mr. Plamondon, do you want to come up? Parks and Rec Director.
Good evening. Tonight's agenda item has request for approval, a preventative maintenance agreement with Tech Mechanical, who's been the existing contractor. This past year, the new ice refrigeration package has been under warranty with Simco, the new package that council approved for purchase. That warranty has since expired, so we're looking to enter into a new agreement, updated agreement that costs less. Less maintenance on a newer package should not require as much maintenance. Previous package, preventative maintenance package was $10,000. This new package is $4,000. So less visits, less money. So looking for approval of the package.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, Councilmember Lynch.
I was a little confused with one statement that was written, wanting to keep a close eye on the frequency of the preventive maintenance visits. Are you thinking 3 might not be enough? I was a little confused with that.
We think 3 is enough, but we're still learning the system.
Okay.
So we think 3 would be good to start with, and if more preventative maintenance is required, that's something we might have to amend for a future agreement.
Okay, so you're thinking that possibly as the system ages a little bit, more than 3 a year is what we would be looking at?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
You know, I guess time will tell.
Okay.
Okay, motion's in order.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jacobs.
I move to approve the attached 1-year agreement with Tech Mechanical to perform preventive maintenance tasks at the Civic Ice Arena for a period of October 1st, 2019 to September 30th, 2020, and to authorize the Parks and Recreation Director to execute all necessary documents.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Squires. Any comments from the table?
Yes, I'm glad to see that it's a lot less. I was going to ask you how much less it was. So thank you for that information up front.
Any other comments from the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Item 4, bid rejection for Helen Park Sidewalk Project. I'm going to bring up Ryan Kern from Hennessy. You want to explain to us and the residents why we're rejecting the sidewalk project at Helen Park?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So we did put out to bid the Helen Park Sidewalk Project. It is late in the season. I know the Wayne County Parks Millage money is being used for the project, so we wanted to try and get it done hopefully this year, but we did get 3 bids in that came in much higher than we expected, and I think it's just because of the lateness in the season, and most contractors are booked up for the year, so their prices were a lot higher than we typically see. So the low bid came in at $26,400. We have $16,000 and some change available through the Wayne County Parks Millage, so it's recommended that we reject the bids and postpone the project until the spring and either rebid it at that time or potentially add it to the existing sidewalk contractor. He'll be working roughly in that same area, we could entertain the possibility of extending that work to his contract as well.
So it was 10 grand higher than we
Correct.
expected. So
Correct.
hopefully we can do it in the spring. Okay.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Motion's in order.
Mayor.
Councilmember Kerwin.
Motion to reject all bids for the Helen Park sidewalk project with the intent to rebid in the spring of 2020.
Support.
Support for Councilmember Lynch. Any further comments from the table? From the general public? Mr. Molnar?
Evidently, I'm missing something. The sidewalk you're talking about on Helen Park is on both ends?
It goes from Helen to Deering. It was a sidewalk to connect go through the whole park, I believe, from,
So you run it long ways through the park?
yes.
Why would you put a sidewalk long ways through the park?
Walking trail through the park.
Walking what?
Accessibility into the park or a walking trail.
I can understand in the front of the park and the back of the park, because they got sidewalks on the street over there.
Yeah.
But why in the world you're running one long ways through the park is beyond me. Some kid could fall and break his head open, I guess. It makes no sense. It's a park.
Okay. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 6-0. This time, we'll go to public comments for items that were not on the agenda. If you want to make a comment, please come up, state your name. Anybody want to speak? Ms. Stoll.
Good evening, everyone. My apologies that I didn't get to you in time to ask to come up earlier.
It's all right, you're fine.
But I wanted to, everybody's already said something about the chili cook-off, but I wanted to get up and make sure that I gave a huge thank you to the Buccelli Group. We wanted to add something this year to the chili cook-off and couldn't quite afford to do it. I contacted them, and there was no hesitation at all. He said, do it, I'll sponsor it. So we will have a zip line going down Central Avenue this year, which is our new thing. I think Councilmember Jacobs has already claimed a spot in line. But there's that, and our Parks and Rec Director will also be doing a cornhole tournament this year. So make sure you come out. We've got the car show, the motorcycle show, and another new thing this year is that there will be cash prizes for best in show in the car and the motorcycle categories. So along with the chili, we're going to have lots of food, entertainment, lots of good stuff. Then at 5 o'clock, we switch over from the chili cook-off to the Afterburn event, which benefits the Garden City Goodfellows. And we've got 3 bands playing 4 different sets. Of course, the beer will still be flowing, and we'll have food going for that, too. And that runs this year just until 9 o'clock. We decided to cut it a little bit shorter than we have the last couple years. So hopefully everybody comes out. Chili judging starts at noon.
How many chili people do we have making chili this year?
It's kind of gone back and forth for the last 2 weeks. I believe right now we're at 24 teams, which
24?
I'm pretty sure is what we had last year.
Okay, thank you.
So bring the Tums.
Yeah. You ain't just a kidding. Anybody else? Mr. Dole.
Good evening, Council and Honorable Mayor. I have a few things tonight. First, I'd like to let the community know that we're holding our 2019 Southeastern Michigan Stand Down next Wednesday and Thursday, which I believe is the 16th and 17th. Gates open up at 8 a.m. both days. It's at Michigan Light Guard Armory, 4400 East 8 Mile Road in Detroit. For those of you that don't know what a stand down is, it's we provide a safe, secure place for our veterans to socialize and get some of the things that they are needed. Most of these people are homeless or having rough times. They have, like, I believe 40 things that they have to go and get checked in. We're concerned about their health, their mental health, their physical health. And that's first. They have to get a check-off list checked off that they went seen the doctor. Everything's 100% free. They can get their eyes examined. They can get dental work. They can get a total physical, AIDS test, other things. If they need counseling, it's available. We help them get housing. We help them get jobs. They come in the armory. They get hot meals. They socialize with other heroes. until their number comes up to go to the medical or whatever. They're provided clothes, sleeping bags, tents, whatever they need, it's up to them. Again, everything's free, and I'd like to see a lot of them come out. They're bussed in from the VA hospital. We've done this, I've been on this 20 years plus. We get to know where they sleep, under the viaducts, in the woods. We go by, pick them up. They go to the churches, they go to the rescue centers, and they're all bussed in to the armory Wednesday and Thursday.
That's 4400 East 8 Mile. What's the date and the time?
8 a.m. both days, Wednesday and Thursday, 16th and 17th of October, next week.
Do you have paperwork on that?
I do not. I do have a website, forvets.org. There's a lot of information on there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On another note, I'm currently vice chair of the Planning Commission. Many years ago, I was asked to sit as a planning commissioner. I remember thinking this is a great way to serve my community, so I accepted. I was honored to be a volunteer with my time and experience and have a hand in shaping the future of this city. For most of those years, I continued to feel that way. I worked hard, I studied site plans, I studied city ordinances, I spent my own money to learn how and what I needed for this position. Every decision I made, every vote I voted on, was based on my knowledge, nothing personal. I wanted what was best for the residents in this city and how our laws told us to vote. The past year, I've seen many changes. The recent events involving the Planning Commission, City Council, and the city manager have left a bad taste. I've been accused of being a racist when what I was doing was following our ordinances. I've learned the past few months our ordinances don't apply to everyone, especially someone who has their own agenda and the authority to act on it. Both my wife and my integrity have been questioned by this administration. I've been accused of allowing someone to tell me how to vote. In this case, it was my wife, who is the director and the CEO of Downtown Development Authority. Have we discussed issues involving the Planning Commission and the DDA? Sure we have. We don't always see eye to eye, but she has never interfered with my way to vote, just like I don't tell her how to do her job. We both love this city. We've lived here for over 50 years. Our children live here. Our grandchildren live here. This is our life. That's why we're so active in this city. It's our home. This is such a shameful testament to what is happening here at City Hall. I don't agree with bullying or scare tactics, both which have been used against the planning commissioners. I'm sure you'll deny it, but there were closed-door meetings. There were phone calls made to commissioners prior to meetings. There were texts made to commissioners after votes were taken, with threats that their vote was going to cause the city to be sued. This administration recently voted to make changes to the ordinances, giving away the residents' rights to democratic procedure that has worked for decades, instead of allowing 9 individuals to spend a considerable amount of time researching, planning, prior to making decisions. 9 people who are residents of the city and have a vested interest in what happens here. Those decisions will now rest in the hands of one. In my book, it's called a dictatorship.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Dole.
The people calling the shots now neither live here nor have no interest in staying. My recent decision by this council has made me question why I would continue my role as a commissioner. It is clear my experience is not needed or wanted. With that being said, I regretfully tender my resignation as Planning Commission, effective immediately.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Mr. Chico.
My name's Carl Chico. I live at 30414 Pierce. I am presently a commissioner on the Garden City Planning Commission, In May of 2019, the Planning Commission received an application for a banquet hall on Middle Belt Road. The applicant submitted plans for assembly hall seating of 570 plus, a staff of 30. This plan required 220 parking spots. The property has the capacity of 74 of those 220. This meant the applicant would accommodate only 34% of the parking on his own property, and remaining 66% would need to be acquired in the surrounding business or public parking. That's 146 parking spots outside the applicant's property. There was one sticking point in the applicant under the Garden City Ordinance 154-352. Banquet halls are not listed as a permitted use in a central business district. At that time, the Planning Commission considered recommendations from the DDA and voted the banquet halls are not similar to permitted uses in a central business district and denied the application. I can go into detail about it, but it pretty much gives us, or the Planning Commission, the right to refuse down in the central business district, not definitions being picked apart by lawyers. After the planning meeting, phone calls were made by council members and accusation of racism, possible lawsuits began. This was by people that were not even present at the Planning Commission meetings. In the very next city council meeting, the city manager campaigned for the applicant, basically setting up lawsuit talking points for the applicant, recommendations to change city ordinance to the city council, and explaining the ineptness of the Planning Commission and how they got this wrong. In the June 2019 Planning Commission, the applicant returned with his revised application, and the application was changed from a banquet hall to a restaurant and banquet. The new plans were exactly the same, except for half the chairs were removed at each table. This would require only 107 parking spaces. The change is legal based on our ordinances. There is no recourse should 200 cars show up on a given night for this business. Again, the Planning Commission was denied the application based on Garden City Ordinance. Banquet halls are not listed as permitted use in the central business district. At that meeting, the city council called for a closed-door session. At that meeting, the city manager called us for a closed-door session with the Planning Commission and the city attorney. All that was spoken is confidential and cannot be repeated. How convenient. Read us the Riot Act, and oh yeah, you talk about it, it's the detail, you can't talk about it outside this room. The last council meeting, city ordinance were changed to allow the applicant to operate in the central business district. Control was taken from a vote of 9 and given to 1, the city manager. Just remember who caused the $18 million lawsuit years ago. It was this group of people here. Not all of them, but maybe one. The disrespect shown by the city council to the volunteers on the Planning Commission these last few months have been insulting beyond belief. Your last council meeting, you pushed the envelope when you voted to change city ordinances without public comment. I'm disgusted with the gamemanship.
You have 15 seconds, Mr. Chico.
It's a disservice to your volunteers and the community. I resign as a commissioner for the Garden City Public Planning Commission.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else?
John Murray, Lather Street. You know, in 3 months, we're going to be opening ourselves to the 3rd decade to this new millennium. It's devastating when you look at yourself. But my biggest concern is that we need to retool our government here to where there is transparency. As an example, we get a package from the CPA. It tells us how we spend this money. It gives us just numbers. I don't know about you guys, but after 10,000, it's a lot of money. Why can't we see this in percentages to the revenue we have? And I'd like to see something like that develop where we go back at least 5 years, take and see exactly how we're allocating the money to make sure that places are taken care of. Where the other issue is, you know, we've had a pretty good economy. We got bit pretty bad in 2008. So my question is, what kind of preparation are you guys, do you have any kind of plan or a bullet point to where we got to do something today because we're going to end up being a rotten spot and we don't have any more hard assets to bail us out. And the other issue that we have to be looking at right now, I believe, with this minimum wage going to $15, doesn't that mean we're going to have a 30% raise on a lot of our employees, on some of the outsourcing and everything else? And I'm just wondering what you people are doing to prepare us for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Farron?
evening. Again, can I ask a question about the road millage?
You can, yeah, leave the question with Matt, and we'll answer it tonight, or we'll get the answer for
Okay.
you.
Do you want me to say it out loud or not?
Sure.
Oh, okay. So I just wanted to know how many residents are gaining sidewalk where they didn't have sidewalk before their road is done. Because I understand that people are getting sidewalk where there was no sidewalk. And I did some crunching of the numbers, and it looks like if you have 15 squares of sidewalk put in, that's roughly $2,400 based on the figures under the sidewalk program. And that's quite a significant gift to the residents through the road millage. So I just want to know how many homes are gaining that sidewalk, because when the millage was talked about, it was roads, 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 and I did not understand people would be gaining sidewalk from it. So if you could help me get that information, I'd appreciate it.
Okay.
Also, I wanted to bring up the letter that's put out in the, with the water bills. It's called the Garden City Buzz, and it's mailed with every water bill. And the first thing right off the bat, the top of the letter was listed the 4 candidates who are on the ballot running for city council. The author failed to mention there's another candidate who's registered with the city clerk and is running for a council seat as a write-in candidate, Stacy Karafatis. She's registered as a candidate with the city clerk and running, and nothing was mentioned anywhere in the letter. So my question is, was this done on purpose, or was it just an oversight? Because I think she deserves the same exposure the other candidates were given by putting that out in the water bill. I just think that's fair. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Michael.
Melissa DeMichael, 29636 Hennepin. First off, Ms. Lynch, last 2 weeks ago, you mentioned to us about the recycle program and no longer to recycle glass, and very useful. I rarely throw out trash anymore. Almost everything goes in the recycle. My trash was a little bit heavier this week because of things that have changed that I wasn't aware of, so thank you for that. I also wanted to say that I'm very for the police and fire. I have been a resident for 36 years, and I used to manage over the past 14 years off and on this Garden City Bank of America across the street. From false alarms in the morning to fraudulent people coming in to bad checks, to myself even needing medical care from passing out at the institution, they were always there. Great care. And, you know, right across the street, so absolutely. But anytime in the morning I could pick up if I thought something was strange or suspicious, they were there. And so I'm definitely for the police and fire millage, and I just wanted to say thank you for everything you guys do in the city. That's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else? State Representative Joelle Jones.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, Administration, citizens. Just wanted to come and say hello. I was actually over at Inkster's council meeting for a second. I'm sure Preston talked to everyone right now. Not much legislation and resolutions happening. Quite a few are, but I'm really dealing with the budget right now. If Preston didn't update everyone, the budget was sent from the House and the Senate to the governor. As some people may know, she line item vetoed 147 of those budgets. Something we really haven't seen since Governor English time. Right now, though, some of the House and Senate leadership are not willing to negotiate, so we're kind of in a standstill until everyone comes back to the table to figure out what's going on with the budget. But there will be some supplemental and temporary budgets put forth because we do have about 50,000 state employees dependent on revenue from the state. And also, I'm scheduled to be having breakfast with the governor and one of my colleagues in the morning. So if there's any pressing issues that you all want us to share with them, let me know between now and 8 a.m. And I'll make sure I get that to her. So,
One question. Where'd you get that jacket?
this jacket, one a business out in Detroit had gave me the jacket. So they actually designed it. They asked for one of my suit jackets. They designed it and gave it back. So
All right. I had to mess with you.
we're gonna get you one. We're gonna get you one.
I got one,
Thank you,
Mayor,
sir.
I got one thing, if you
Yeah.
want to mention to her. Her vetoes have put police officers out of jobs. and have taken away training from police officers, and it's a joke. She needs to fix that now, so you can let her know that.
Yeah, I'll mention that to her for sure. I think
She's putting the citizens at risk.
Yeah, not that I agree with all the cuts that she made, because I know they were definitely hitting a lot of different areas from the law enforcement perspective, from the mental health perspective. I think what she was aiming to do, hopefully, which I'm going to be talking to her a little bit about that tomorrow, I think that she took a little bit from everybody. Because of the way that negotiations were happening, people were not willing to come to the table. So I think everyone kind of got hit with those vetoes that she put forth. But I definitely will make sure that I communicate that to her from you.
Okay.
Definitely.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Anybody else? City Manager's report.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Just one main issue. Surprise and shock today. I received the resignation of Dan Plamondon. So after 13 years as Garden City Director of Parks and Recreation, Dan is moving on to greener pastures at a new opportunity. Now, he won't be at the next meeting, but I asked him to come back for a formal recognition for his years of service and dedication to Garden City in the future. But I asked him if I could just point it out tonight, and he said okay. So, there's Dan.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We'll have a better formal ceremony in a couple of meetings. Great.
Is that it?
That's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Kerwin.
Well, good luck to Dan on your future endeavors. And I also would like to thank Mr. Dold and Mr. Chico for their time and service. Just a quick reminder about the chili cook-off. There will be parking at the high school, and you can take the Nankin Transit shuttle over to the actual event. And then the last thing I have is beginning October 5th and ends October 30th, the Straight Farmhouse is having their 2019 Skeletons on Review. It's family-friendly, it's free. They're asking for kids to come in their costumes to come look. And they are open from noon to 3, Wednesday and Saturday. That's all I have.
Councilmember Lynch.
Yes. Dan, thank you for 13 years of hard work over in Parks and Rec. I know some of the years were not easy because the budget wasn't there, but you did a really good job with what you had. Thank you. And also to Mr. Dold and Mr. Chico, thank you for your services on the Planning Commission. It is much appreciated. I was just going to say, where else can you wake up at 9 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, go to a firefighter open house, a police officer open house, a chili cook-off, and an afterburn, 4 events in one day, and you really don't have to move very far to get to all 4. And that would be this Saturday. So we look forward to seeing everybody out. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Jacob.
I just echo Dan. I know working as a liaison with you, it's it's a tough job, and appreciate your hard work and efforts. Good luck to you in the future. And that's all I have.
Okay, Councilmember Squires.
Okay, I too want to wish you good luck in your new endeavor, Dan. So you've done quite a bit, for the city of Garden City and keeping that Parks and Rec going. So thank you. And that's all I have.
Okay. Councilmember Earl.
I'd like to agree with those sentiments. Working for a municipality isn't the easiest job in the world, so thank you, Dan, for that. And not just the 2 members that stepped down, but to all of our volunteers. I appreciate the work they do. It's not easy. Sometimes decisions are hard and have to be looked at and scrutinized. And I appreciate their service, and that's all I have.
Okay. Mr. Miller.
I have nothing.
Okay. To Mr. Plamondon, thank you for your 13 years. I hope you got somebody good to pick up that bacon run, because that's been a big success. So wish you all the best in all you do. And also I want to thank Mr. Chico, Mr. Dold for their service on the Planning Commission. And to all the residents, come out to our chili cook-off. It's been getting bigger and better every year. So, and the open house at the fire department and the police department. That's all I have. No further business. This meeting's adjourned. Thank you.